Because what happened inside the polished, glass-walled meeting rooms of Amazon MGM Studios wasn't just a failed pitch. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. It wasn't even a clash of egos. It was the moment a Hollywood dream, years in the making, built on ambition, reinvention, and relentless PR, collapsed in on itself in real time. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. And it happened in front of the one director who absolutely refuses to play along with anyone's facade. Jason Orley. Yes, that Jason Orley. And if anyone had told Meghan beforehand that walking into that meeting would end the way it did, she never would have stepped foot in the building. But she did, and everything changed. Let me take you into the room. Let me take you into that moment. And let me show you the single conversation that sparked whispers across Hollywood. Meghan Markle. Blacklisted. Sounds dramatic, right? But trust me, you haven't heard anything yet. Before we get into the exact words Jason said, before we unravel the memo that circulated through the studio, and before you witness the chain reaction it set off across the industry, we need to start with what led Meghan to this moment. Because when you understand the pressure she was under, the need to reclaim relevance, the hunger to relaunch her Hollywood identity, and the weight of every headline chasing her, you'll understand why this meeting mattered more than anything she'd done in years, and why the humiliation hit her so hard. So let's rewind the clock just a little. Imagine the scene. A black SUV glides toward the Amazon MGM studio lot. Tinted windows. Quiet urgency. Inside, Meghan sits forward, scrolling through notes on her tablet. Not because she needs them. She's rehearsed her pitch 100 times. But because today isn't just a meeting. It's validation. This is the day she proves Hollywood was wrong to let her slip away. The day she reclaims the spotlight. The day she shows everyone, from doubters to critics to industry gatekeepers, that Meghan Markle was back, bigger, louder, and more determined than ever. But here's the twist. While Meghan is preparing for a triumphant comeback, Jason Orley is preparing for something else entirely. An exhausting day filled with decisions, scripts, tight timelines, and absolutely zero patience for theatrics. And he's about to be hit with something he wasn't warned about. A last-minute, unscheduled, high-stakes meeting. With Meghan. You can almost feel the storm clouds gathering already, can't you? But stay with me. Because the moment her SUV stops, the energy shifts. Assistants straighten up. Phones buzz. 2 staff members whisper, "She's here early?" A third mutters, "Wait. Wasn't this supposed to be next week?" But Meghan steps out with that immaculate Hollywood cadence. Head high, shoulders back, chin angled just enough to suggest control, confidence, and a hint of entitlement. She greets people with the polished warmth she's practiced since her early Suits days. But beneath the smiles, there's tension. Unspoken, sharp, undeniable. Because everyone knows. Jason Orley doesn't like surprises. And this is a surprise. Still, Meghan walks inside like she owns the moment. Her team follows. Clipboards, tablets, rehearsed smiles. If you've ever watched a celebrity enter a room expecting applause, you know the feeling. But this room wasn't clapping. Not even close. In fact, while Meghan breezes through the studio hallway, Jason is finishing up another meeting, completely unaware that Meghan and her entourage are already assembling in the conference room. And here's where the tension really starts. Because Meghan isn't just pitching an idea. She's pitching herself, her brand, her narrative, her resurgence. And she expects people to be excited. But Amazon MGM isn't in the business of charity. They want hits. They want substance. And Jason Orley, well, he doesn't fall for sparkle. He knows the industry better than anyone. He knows when a project is driven by passion and when it's driven by ego. Now ask yourself, which one do you think he suspects this meeting is about? Let that simmer. Meghan's team sets up inside a sleek, modern conference room overlooking the lot. Filtered sunlight, minimalist decor, 1 long table, 12 chairs, 2 cameras for internal documentation. She chooses the seat at the head. Not unusual, but noticeable. She adjusts the lighting, requests the temperature lowered, asks for sparkling water, even though regular water is already on the table. Little things. But little things matter. Especially when the director who hates distractions walks in. Jason finally enters. No theatrics. No entourage. Just him, a notebook, and a reputation strong enough to silence a room with a single raised eyebrow. The handshake? Brief. The greeting? Professional. The atmosphere? Already heavy. Meghan launches into her pitch with the enthusiasm of someone who believes every person in the room is already on her side. She describes the project as bold, transformative, deeply meaningful. She talks about empowerment, legacy, narrative control. Audience question for you. Have you ever watched two people communicate but clearly not listen to each other? That's this moment. Because while Meghan is performing, Jason is analyzing. While she's describing herself as a voice Hollywood needs, he's wondering why she keeps using the word "I" more than the word "story." While she's outlining emotional arcs, he's wondering where the actual plot is. While she's explaining why she's the perfect person to produce this, he's wondering if she realizes this isn't a brand pitch. It's a studio pitch. But Meghan doesn't see it. Not yet. She's smiling, animated, gesturing, emphasizing how globally resonant her project is. Except the room is silent. Nobody nods. Nobody takes notes. Nobody jumps in with supportive commentary. Just quiet. Thick, motionless quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you shift in your seat. The kind that makes you realize something is off. Meghan feels it. Her smile tightens. Her pacing slows. Her voice lowers just a little. She tries to recover with a story about inspiration, about vision, about the impact she wants to make. But inspiration only works if the listener is inspired. Jason is not. Finally, Meghan finishes. There's a pause. A long one. This is the moment every creator dreads, the silence between the pitch and the feedback. It lasts maybe 5 seconds, but it feels like 30. Then Jason exhales. He leans back. He rubs his forehead. And he says the sentence that changes everything. Not a compliment. Not encouragement. Just, "I'm going to be honest." You can almost hear the temperature in the room drop. He continues. This doesn't feel like a story. It feels like a PR exercise. You know that feeling when every molecule in the room vibrates at once. That's what happens. Meghan blinks. Her team shifts uncomfortably. An assistant looks down at the table. Jason keeps going. I don't see depth. I don't see structure. I don't see a reason this needs to exist beyond branding. A contradiction hangs in the air. Meghan believes she's offering meaning. Jason believes she's offering media. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't insult her. He doesn't provoke. He's calm, measured, clear, which makes it even more devastating. Because calm criticism cuts deeper than loud criticism. Meghan swallows, smiles stiffly, says, I think you may be misunderstanding the message. And that's the turning point. When a creator tells a director he doesn't understand, it's over. Jason closes his notebook. He tells her the project lacks emotional authenticity. He says it feels self-involved. He says audiences won't connect to something that's polished but hollow. Every word is polite, but every word hits like a hammer. Meghan tries to salvage it. She talks about audience impact, personal connection, cultural relevance. But Jason interrupts. A soft interruption, but firm. Meghan, this industry doesn't need vanity projects. It needs good stories. Silence. Her team looks like they want to disappear into the walls. And Meghan? She isn't angry yet. Not yet. She's shocked, stunned, almost confused that someone dared speak to her with unfiltered honesty. Because that honesty doesn't exist in celebrity circles. Most people tell famous people what they want to hear. Jason? He doesn't care who you are. He cares about story. And this, in his eyes, was not a story. But the real blow isn't what he said in the room. It's what came after. Because within hours, whispers began to circulate inside Amazon MGM studios. Not rumors. Not gossip. An internal memo. A memo that would follow Meghan to every door she tried to open afterward. A memo that would ignite the phrase, Hollywood is distancing. A memo she never expected to exist, let alone spread. And once it left that building, her entire Hollywood plan started unraveling thread by thread. But what exactly did that memo say? What was so damaging, so blunt, so brutally honest? That people inside the studio claim it sealed the fate of her comeback? Well, that's where the story gets even more intense. And trust me, you ever walk into a room and instantly feel like something is off? Not wrong, not dangerous, just off. That was Amazon MGM Studios the morning Meghan arrived. And here's the strangest part. The tension didn't start when she walked in. It started before she even reached the building. People felt it coming, like a storm building in the distance, like the air tightening a few seconds before lightning hits the ground. Let me paint this picture for you. It's barely 8:45 a.m. Most of the studio staff are still settling in. Coffee cups half full, emails half read, brains half awake. Then the security desk phone rings. A guard answers, pauses, sits up a little straighter. Then he says quietly, "She's early?" And the assistant next to him says, "She? Who's she?" But he already knows. He doesn't even need to check the list. Because there's only one person who creates this much confusion, surprise, and quiet panic when she shows up ahead of schedule. Meghan Markle. Minutes later, a black SUV pulls into the restricted drive. Not aggressively, not recklessly, but with that precise kind of glide that says, "This isn't just a car. This is an entrance." Two security staff step outside. Not because they were told to, but because they instinctively want to look like they're doing something important. Because this isn't normal. This isn't planned. And when something isn't planned at a major studio, people get nervous. Especially today. Because Jason Orley is on site. And he hates surprises. Now ask yourself this. If you knew the director you were meeting despised unexpected changes, would you show up early? Would you create disruption? Or would you make life as predictable as possible? Right. But Meghan? Meghan walks differently. She operates on a timeline that bends to her. And to her credit, that has gotten her very far in life. But on this day, that timeline was about to collide with someone who refused to bend. The SUV stops. The rear door opens. And Meghan steps out with the confident precision of someone trained in red carpet choreography. She doesn't look around nervously. She doesn't ask for direction. She doesn't wait for anyone to greet her. She walks, like she already knows where she's going, like the studio was waiting for her. Her assistant follows, juggling a laptop bag, a tablet, and a binder. Another assistant trails behind with a box of presentation materials. And the third, because yes, she brought three, holds multiple phones and a color-coded scheduling board. Studio workers pause, not because they're starstruck, but because the energy she brings is unmistakable, and not necessarily comfortable. Someone whispers, "I thought the meeting was next Thursday." Someone else says, "No one told Jason." Another replies, "Oh God." Inside the lobby, the front desk attendant forces a smile. "Good morning, Meghan." Meghan gives a polished nod. Nothing rude, nothing dramatic. Just a nod that says, "Yes, I know. Yes, I am expected. Yes, things will revolve around this moment now." She signs in quickly, then walks toward the elevators. Except, she doesn't need an escort. She's already memorized the layout. Her assistant calls out, "Conference room 6B?" And Meghan replies without breaking stride, "Yes, glass wall, corner side. Best lighting." Now let me ask you something directly. How many people walk into a studio, unescorted, and know exactly which conference room has the best lighting? That's not an accident. That's a mindset. A mindset that can open doors or close them. Today, it begins closing them. While Meghan strides toward the elevator, something else is happening 2 floors above her. Jason Orley is wrapping up a meeting. A real meeting. One scheduled. One important. One that doesn't involve PR, drama, or self-promotion. He's reviewing a script. He's excited about it. He's focused. And then an assistant knocks on his door. "Jason, slight change to your morning." He raises an eyebrow. She continues, "Meghan Markle is here." He blinked. "She's what?" "She's here for the pitch." Now. Yes, she's already in the conference room. He leans back in his chair, stares at the ceiling, and exhales with the slow, frustrated breath of a man who has just realized his morning has been hijacked. He doesn't shout. He doesn't complain. He just says quietly, "Unscheduled meetings. My favorite." Dry, ironic, not pleased. The assistant, nervous, mutters, "Sorry." She said her team confirmed. Jason replies, "Her team confirms everything." And he closes the script he was actually excited about. Because now he has to handle this. This unexpected performance. This surprise pitch. This moment that was never meant to happen on his schedule. And here's the key. Jason isn't annoyed that she's Meghan Markle. He's annoyed that she assumed the rules didn't apply to her. Hollywood execs tolerate that. Directors? Not so much. Especially Jason. Downstairs, Meghan enters the conference room. She doesn't choose a seat halfway down the table. She goes directly to the head. The power seat. The command position. She adjusts the chair. She rearranges the water bottles. She asks one assistant to dim the overhead panel lights slightly. But here's the moment that actually sets the tone for the entire room. She has the blinds adjusted so the light hits her face from a flattering angle. Her assistant checks it on the phone camera to confirm. Then Meghan says, "Better." And she sits. Think about that. The studio hasn't even started the meeting, and she's setting up the lighting like she's about to film a documentary about herself. To her, presentation is everything. To the executives, it's a signal, a loud one, that this pitch is not about story, not about collaboration, not about creative passion. It's about image, and image alone. 3 Amazon staffers enter the room. They smile politely, sit stiffly, almost cautiously, because they feel what we feel. This is not a normal meeting. This is a performance waiting for an audience. The youngest executive whispers to the older one, "Is Jason aware this is happening?" He mutters back, "I hope so." Then it happens. The door opens. Jason walks in. No entourage. No folder of glossy materials. No dramatics. He's carrying a simple notebook, a pen, and nothing else. He nods at the execs. Then, morning. Not warm. Not cold. Neutral. Controlled. Professional. Meghan stands to greet him. She gives a bright smile. The kind that's meant to win a room quickly. She extends her hand. He shakes it, but his handshake is brief, and his eyes are already scanning the table, the setup, the lighting, the oversized binder Meghan's assistant placed in front of her. And something in his face shifts. Something subtle. A tightening around the eyes. A slight stiffening of his posture. A signal only the observant notice. He already doesn't like what he's seeing. Not the people. Not the decor. Not the vibe. The vibe is wrong. Contradictory. Forced. You can hide insecurity. You can hide ego. You can hide desperation. But you can't hide vibe. And the vibe of this room is, she's here to prove something. Not to create something. Jason sits. He opens his notebook. Writes one thing on the first page. 2 words. Just 2. The exec next to him glances sideways and catches them. Tone check. He's not judging the project yet. He's judging the tone of the meeting. And the tone? Already tense. Already off. Already in the danger zone. And Meghan hasn't even started talking. Not yet. Because what happens next is what really tilts the energy. Meghan looks at Jason, smiles, and says, "We're so glad you had time for this. I think you're going to find that this project is perfect for someone with your sensibilities." Jason's eyebrow lifts. Just slightly. But enough. Because here's the problem. Directors do not like being told what their sensibilities are. Especially by someone who has not built a reputation in storytelling. Meghan doesn't notice. Her assistants don't notice. But the executives notice. 2 of them lean back almost imperceptibly. One crosses her arms in that slow way that says, "Oh, this is going to be a problem." And it is. Because Meghan continues, "I've crafted something that I think resonates with my journey, with my values, and with the kind of impact I want to have in the world." Impact, journey, values. These are brand words, not story words. And Jason hears it. You can see it in his face. He hears her talking, but he doesn't hear a story, not a plot, not a character arc, not a thematic spine. He hears branding, messaging, narrative control, exactly the things he tries to avoid. She keeps talking, and the assistants keep nodding, and the executives keep pretending to take notes. But something is happening in real time that nobody, not even Meghan, can stop. The atmosphere is splitting, fracturing, dividing into 2 worlds. Her world, where she believes she's presenting a masterpiece, and the real world, where the director across from her is realizing, this is not what I was told this meeting would be. Jason sits back. He taps his pen twice on the notebook, a habit he has when he senses trouble ahead. The room watches him, waiting, wondering, what is he thinking? Does he like it? Is he confused? Is he annoyed? Meghan finishes her introduction, and then she waits. Expectant, confident, almost triumphant. And Jason says nothing. Not for 1 second. Not for 2. For 7 long seconds. Do you know how long 7 silent seconds are in a meeting? Eternity. Enough for the execs to exchange nervous glances. Enough for an assistant to shift in her seat. Enough for Meghan's smile to tighten. Then Jason closes his notebook, looks at Meghan, and says, "Before we go any further, I need to ask something." Meghan straightens. Yes. Jason leans forward. Not aggressively. Not rudely. Just enough to show that the sugarcoating is over. Why are we here? The room freezes. Because that question, that simple question, means one thing. He already knows. Something. Wrong. And this is just the beginning. There are moments in life when you can feel the floor shift beneath your feet. Most people only experience that feeling once or twice. Meghan? She felt it the second she opened her mouth to give her pitch. And the craziest part? She didn't even realize it. Not at first. Let's go back inside that conference room. The sunlight hitting her face at just the right angle. The assistants seated in perfect formation. The Amazon executives trying to look neutral. And Jason, Orley sitting across from her. Already suspicious. Already irritated. Already questioning why he was dragged into something that felt entirely wrong. And then it starts. Meghan takes a breath. Her shoulders square. Her chin lifts half an inch. Her voice softens to that elegant, almost ethereal tone she uses in interviews. And she says, "So Jason, this project is about reclaiming narrative." 3 words. Just 3. But those 3 words trigger the first crack in the room's energy. Reclaiming. Narrative. Identity. These are not story words. These are PR words. And Jason knows it. But Meghan continues anyway. Because in her mind, this is the moment she shines. This is a story about empowerment, she says. A story about a woman finding her voice, rediscovering her truth, and redefining her legacy. Sounds inspiring, right? On paper, maybe. But here's the problem. She still hasn't described the plot. No setup. No conflict. No stakes. No characters. No arc. No world. No hook. Just themes. Themes floating in the air like a motivational speech. Jason sits completely still. No nods. No expressions. No encouragement. Just stillness. And that stillness grows heavier every time Meghan speaks. She adds, it explores trauma, transformation, courage, resilience. Jason raises a hand. Gently, politely, but unmistakably signaling. Stop. Meghan pauses, thrown off rhythm. Yes? She asks, her smile stretching thin. Jason says quietly, "Can you walk me through the story?" And Meghan answers, "I just did." He blinks. No one breathes. Because Jason wasn't asking for concepts. He wasn't asking for messaging. He wasn't asking for social themes. He was asking for a story. A beginning. A middle. An end. And Meghan doesn't have that. Not really. Because this wasn't built like a screenplay. It was built like a press release. But she doesn't realize the danger she's in yet. She tries again. Of course. Yes. The story begins with a woman. A woman navigating the complexities of her past, confronting the forces that tried to silence her, and finding the strength to rise above adversity. Jason inhales sharply. The room senses it. Because this is the exact kind of vague, shapeless pitch Hollywood hates. He asks, "What's the opening scene?" Meghan blinks again. Well, the opening is more of an emotional introduction. What's the first actual scene? She hesitates, then says, "We open on a symbolic visual, a woman standing alone. A voiceover describing her intentions. A faint echo of her inner turmoil." Jason closes his notebook. Not aggressively. Not rudely. Just decisively. Because he knows. He knows this pitch is going nowhere. Have you ever tried to explain something to someone who clearly isn't buying it, but you keep talking anyway, hoping they'll eventually understand? That's Meghan now. She pushes forward. Stronger. Faster. I really believe audiences will feel connected to this. It's authentic. It's intimate. And it's rooted in real-life experience. Jason sets his pen down. And this is where the tone begins to change. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't roll his eyes. He doesn't sigh. He just sits there, watching her. Observing. Analyzing. And this is what throws Meghan off. Because she can't read him. She can read the assistants. She can read the executives. She can even read the interns outside the door who are pretending not to eavesdrop. But she can't read Jason. He's too calm. Too unreactive. Too neutral. And neutrality is the most dangerous expression in Hollywood. It means, I'm not impressed. It means, I'm not excited. It means, you aren't giving me what I need. And Meghan feels it. You can see it in the tiny muscles around her mouth. They tighten, just slightly. Her voice rises half a pitch. She starts gesturing more. Not because she's enthusiastic, but because she's compensating. She's trying to fill the silence. The silence Jason refuses to break. She says, "This isn't just a project. This is a movement. It's a chance to reshape how stories like mine are told." And Jason finally speaks. He asks, "You keep saying stories like mine. Are you the protagonist?" She freezes, because she was hoping he wouldn't notice. But of course he noticed. Jason continues. "Is this fiction? Autobiographical? Semi-autobiographical? Documentary? Docudrama? What is this?" His tone is calm, measured, but unmistakably critical. Meghan answers, "It's a blend, a hybrid, a new kind of storytelling experience that challenges traditional formats." Jason narrows his eyes, meaning, "You haven't decided." Meghan's assistant winces. The younger executive closes her notebook slowly. The older executive pretends to check his watch. Meghan bristles. She says, "No, I've decided. It's just fluid." Jason leans forward. Fluid is not a format. And just like that, you can feel the confidence drain from the room. Not all at once, just bit by bit, like air escaping from a balloon. Meghan tries again. She starts describing themes. She references global resonance. She mentions archetypes. She talks about symbolism. She mentions trauma again, then empowerment again, then impact again. But none of it sticks. None of it connects. Why? Because Meghan is talking about herself. Not the story. Not the audience. Not the characters. Herself. She doesn't realize this. But Jason does. And the more she speaks, the more his expression hardens. Then he asks the question that shifts the entire atmosphere. What's the conflict? She hesitates. Well, the conflict is internal. And the external conflict? The world. The world is not a conflict, Jason replies. The world is a setting. One of the assistants actually stops taking notes. Another sinks lower in her chair. Because that was the moment when the meeting started to come undone. And Meghan knows it. She tries one last time to rescue the pitch. She raises her voice, adds intensity, layers emotion into her words. As a woman who has lived through intense public scrutiny, betrayal, harassment, Jason interrupts. Calmly, softly, but firmly. "Meghan, we're not here to workshop your personal journey. We're here to discuss whether there's a compelling story for film or television." Silence. A deep, painful silence. Meghan's eyes shift. Her jaw tightens. Her hands fold in front of her. She tries to keep her voice steady. "It is compelling. My story has emotional weight." Jason shakes his head. Emotional weight is not the same as narrative weight. Another blow. Quiet. Precise. Surgical. It slices through the room. Meghan swallows. Her assistant reaches out subtly as if to comfort her, but stops halfway. Jason continues. "Right now, this sounds like a polished, extended interview. Not a cinematic experience." She's stunned. Actually stunned. Because she's used to praise. She's used to validation. She's used to people telling her she's powerful, inspiring, important. Jason is telling her she's unclear, unstructured, unprepared, and most importantly, uncompelling. She tries, desperately now, to pivot. "To be clear," she says softly, "this is bigger than me." Jason raises an eyebrow. How? It represents a universal struggle. What struggle? The struggle of being misunderstood, misrepresented. Jason touches his notebook, then closes it. That's not a struggle. That's publicity. Meghan's face drains of color. Her team stiffens. The executives glance at each other with expressions that say, "Is this really happening?" And it is. It's happening. Right in front of them. Right in real time. The unraveling. The shift. The power dynamic collapsing in on itself. And then, the moment that seals the mood of the room. Jason sits back, folds his arms, and says, "Meghan, right now this pitch feels like presentation without substance." Boom. A clean strike. Not shouted. Not cruel. Just true. And truth hurts more than anything else. Meghan inhales sharply. Her smile vanishes. Her eyes narrow, just a fraction. And that's when it hits her. This is not going the way she expected. This is not going how her team rehearsed. This is not aligning with the vision in her head. She expected admiration. She got analysis. She expected enthusiasm. She got skepticism. She expected a green light. She got a wall. And the wall's name is Jason Orley. But here's the twist. This wasn't the worst part of the meeting. Not even close. Because what Jason said next, the single, blunt sentence that leaves everyone breathless, is the moment the entire room realizes this pitch is about to implode. And it does, spectacularly. Because Jason is done being polite. He's done being patient. He's done letting Meghan glide through the room on charm alone. He finally leans forward, looks straight into her eyes, and says, well, what he said next, you're not ready for it. And Meghan certainly wasn't. You ever watch someone get told the truth for the first time in a very long time? Not a softened truth. Not a PR-filtered truth. Not a truth wrapped in compliments and disclaimers. Just cold, direct, uncompromising. That was Meghan's reality in that room. Because when Jason finally leaned forward, locked eyes with her, and opened his mouth, he didn't give her feedback. He gave her impact. Let's go back to that second. The silence is heavy enough to feel. Meghan's pitch has just collapsed under its own vagueness. The executives are quiet. Her assistants are motionless. Jason has already called the presentation without substance. That alone would have been enough to sting. But what he's about to say next, that's the line people inside Amazon MGM will remember. The line they'll repeat in whispers. The line that will end up paraphrased in internal messages. The line that will, in time, circle back to Meghan's team like a boomerang. He leans forward. His hands fold on the table. His voice stays calm. And he says, this doesn't feel like a passion project. It feels like a vanity project. And this industry is tired of vanity. Boom. There it is. Not shouted. Not dramatized. Just stated. And that makes it worse. Because there's something uniquely brutal about hearing your dream described as vanity, especially in a town that pretends every project is important and meaningful. The word lands like a slap with no physical contact. Vanity. Meghan's eyes widen just a fraction. She doesn't flinch. She doesn't gasp. She doesn't lash out. Not yet. But you can see something in her harden. Something in her ego crystallizing. She smiles. A small, controlled smile. And says, I think that's an unfair characterization. Jason doesn't backpedal. He doesn't soften the blow. He simply replies, it's an honest one. The older executive at the table exhales slowly, staring at the notepad in front of him as if it suddenly became the most fascinating object in the room. The younger executive's pen stops moving. Her assistant shifts her posture, uncrossing and recrossing her legs, trying to redistribute the tension somewhere in her body. Meghan's main assistant, closest to her, leans forward inches, as if ready to jump in and clarify on her behalf. But Meghan lifts one hand slightly, signaling, don't. She wants to handle this. Or at least, she wants to look like she can. Can you explain, Meghan asks, voice level, why you see it that way? Now that's a smart move on the surface. Ask for clarification. Engage intellectually. Don't show the insult cut deep. But here's the problem. Jason loves clarity. He lives in the world of structure, motivation, and narrative weight. She just gave him permission to dissect her entire approach. And he takes it. He answers. Right now, everything you've described revolves around you. Your journey, your feelings, how you were perceived, how you want to be perceived now. He pauses. And that's fine, if what we're doing here is rebranding you. But that's not what I do. I make stories. And audiences don't show up to watch a brand. They show up to watch characters facing real, tangible stakes. Meghan forces a laugh. So you don't believe I have real stakes? He shakes his head. That's not what I said. I'm saying you haven't shown me what the stakes are for anyone except you. He glances at his notebook. Who suffers if this character fails? What changes in their world? What's the consequence that doesn't involve optics? Optics. Another loaded word. Meghan shifts in her chair. You're oversimplifying, she counters. This is about systemic pressure, trauma, public cruelty, the impact of. Jason calmly interrupts. All of that can exist in a story, but the story still needs bones. He taps the table lightly with his fingers, marking points. Inciting incident, conflict, escalation, crisis, resolution. Where are those? Meghan opens her mouth, closes it, opens it again. We're still shaping some of those elements, she says, trying to weave composure into every syllable. We wanted to get your input on direction. Translation in Jason's head. You don't have them yet. He nods slightly, and then he twists the knife, not cruelly, but with the precision of someone who's seen this 100 times. You didn't come in here with a story, he says. You came in here with an agenda. That's the difference. The room freezes. Even the air conditioning seems to hesitate. Agenda. There it is. The one word nobody wants to hear about their project. Because agenda means this isn't about art. It isn't about narrative. It isn't about the audience. It's about controlling perception. And Jason is allergic to that. One of the executives clears his throat, trying to break the tension. Let's maybe talk about target demographics, he suggests weakly. But Jason doesn't look away from Meghan. Demographics don't matter, he says flatly, if the story isn't there. Meghan's face flushes, just a hint of color rising to her cheeks. She's not used to this level of directness. Oh, she's dealt with critics. She's dealt with tabloids. She's dealt with online hate. But that's different. That's anonymous, distant, impersonal. This is face-to-face, undeniable, unedited. And it's coming from someone whose opinion actually carries weight in the industry she wants to dominate. She straightens her back, switches strategies. She softens her voice. I think, she says, that part of the challenge here is that you're looking at this through a traditional lens. What I'm proposing is something more disruptive, nonlinear, a new kind of narrative form. Jason stops her with a slight wave of his hand. New kind of narrative form is something people say, he replies, when they haven't figured out the old ones yet. Ouch. One of the assistants practically winces. The younger executive presses her lips together to suppress her reaction. Even the older exec's eyes flicker up in quick, silent shock. This isn't polite disagreement anymore. This is an autopsy. Meghan leans back now, her posture less open, more defensive. So you're dismissing it. Jason shakes his head slowly. I'm not dismissing you, he says. I'm telling you this pitch isn't ready. And more importantly, it's not honest about what it really is. Meghan frowns. What it really is. Yes, he says. A personal vehicle. Built around your image. Your mythology. Your grievances. You want to turn your story into a product. Again, that's your right. But don't call it a story about everyone when every scene points back to you. He lets that hang. Because deep down, that's the core of his issue. It's not that Meghan wants to tell a story. It's that she wants to control the narrative so tightly that there's no room left for authenticity. No vulnerability. No self-critique. No risk. And art cannot breathe in that environment. Meghan's jaw clenches. I think you're projecting a lot onto this, she says quietly. You don't know my intentions. He nods. For the record, I don't care about intentions. I care about execution. Then he delivers the line that becomes the quote. The line that will later be screenshotted, paraphrased, half denied, half confirmed. In this business, Jason says, intentions don't matter. Results do. And what you've brought in today doesn't work. Not as a film. Not as a series. Not even as a pilot. There it is. Brutal. Precise. Final. You can almost hear the last bit of confidence drain out of the room like air. Meghan stares at him. She can't believe what she's hearing. Not because she's never heard criticism. She has. But because she's not used to it being stripped of caution. Usually, people tiptoe. They say things like, we love the idea, it just needs work. We think there's something here, but it needs time. We're excited, but the timing isn't right. This isn't that. This is. It doesn't work. She feels something twist in her chest. A sudden, hot mix of embarrassment and anger. But she swallows it. She will not explode. Not here. Not in front of these people. Then what would you suggest? She asks, voice almost icy now. Jason glances briefly at her binder. At the pages she carefully printed. The branding language. The loglines written like slogans. The emotional buzzwords circled with colored markers. He doesn't open it. He doesn't need to. My suggestion, he says, if you really want to tell a story, stop trying to protect yourself in every frame. That one hits different. Because it's not just about the pitch now. It's about her. He continues. Stories come alive when people are allowed to be flawed on screen. Messy. Wrong. Hurtful. Hypocritical. Human. What you're describing sounds like a carefully curated version of yourself who never actually did anything wrong. Meghan stiffens. I never said that. You didn't have to, Jason replies. It's written between every line. The executives look down. They already know this meeting is unsalvageable. But they also know something else. They're witnessing the exact moment Meghan Markle's chances at this studio evaporate. Not slowly, not quietly, but decisively. She exhales sharply through her nose. "So you've made up your mind," she says. "Before we've even had the chance to explore what this could be." Jason's eyes narrow. "I just sat here while you talked in circles for 20 minutes and never gave me a single concrete scene," he replies. "That tells me everything I need to know." Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Until Meghan breaks it. She smiles again, but this time it isn't warm. It isn't comforting. It's sharp. "You know," she says slowly, "not everyone in this industry thinks so narrowly." The older executive looks like he wants to sink into the floor. Because in this atmosphere, that line sounds less like a comment and more like a threat. Jason tilts his head slightly. "There it is," he says under his breath. "The implication." Meghan's eyes flash. "What implication?" "That if I don't go along with your project," he replies, "I'm somehow on the wrong side of something." He shakes his head. "I'm not afraid of being on the wrong side of PR. I'm afraid of wasting time on a project that doesn't work." He pauses, then adds, almost as an afterthought, "And this doesn't work. This time, there's no room for interpretation. No diplomatic pathway. No polite escape hatch." He said it. Everyone heard it. "It doesn't work." Meghan's assistant finally speaks up. "Perhaps we could set a follow-up," she suggests nervously. "Give you a revised version? Maybe a clearer outline, deeper structure." Jason cuts her off gently. "I don't think that will be necessary. Translation? We're done. Not for now. Not pending revisions. Not let's stay in touch. Done." Meghan's spine straightens again. Her expression smooths out, the way someone fixes their hair in a mirror after crying in the bathroom. She isn't going to beg. She isn't going to plead. If there's one thing she knows, it's how to armor herself with dignity when she feels exposed. "Thank you for your time," she says, tone clipped. "We appreciate your perspective." But even in that sentence, there's a fracture. Because "we appreciate your perspective" is exactly what people say when they don't appreciate it at all. Jason nods once. "You're welcome." And he might have left it there. He might have stood, shaken hands, and walked out. But he doesn't. Because there's one more thing he needs to say. One last line. Not to hurt her. Not to embarrass her. But to make absolutely sure there is no confusion about what this meeting meant. He leans forward slightly and says, "For what it's worth, Meghan, if you ever do decide to build something that isn't built around selling yourself, I'd be happy to look at it. Until then, Hollywood has moved past this kind of project. Hollywood has moved past this kind of project." That's the sentence. That's the one. The executives go still. Her assistants freeze. Meghan's lips part. Because beneath the professional phrasing, the message is clear. You are late to a game you think you're leading. The world no longer revolves around this kind of self-mythologizing. Not in the way it used to. Not with the audiences now. Not with the standards changing. Meghan swallows. Her voice is barely above a whisper when she replies. "Hollywood hasn't heard the last of me." Jason doesn't blink. "Then give it something worth hearing," he says. And with that, he closes his notebook, stands up, and walks out. No handshake. No final look back. Just gone. Leaving Meghan sitting there. In perfect lighting. In the power seat. With her pristine binder in front of her. And absolutely no idea that the real damage of this meeting hasn't even begun yet. Because what happens after he leaves? The whispers, the summary emails, the internal memo, the private reactions. That's where the demolition truly starts. The humiliation inside that room was bad enough. But the aftermath? That's where her Hollywood dream starts to crack in places she can't fix. You know how every big studio has one moment, one quote, one whisper that escapes the room and spreads through the building like wildfire? It's never the official announcement. Never the carefully worded press release. Never the sanitized version of events. It's always the sentence someone blurts out in frustration. Or the quiet remark made under someone's breath. Or the brutally honest comment spoken by a person who doesn't care about status, power, or PR. In this story, that person is Jason Orley. And the sentence, the one that escapes, the one that travels from floor to floor, the one that becomes the defining headline of Meghan Markle's failed pitch, comes right after he walks out of the conference room. But before we get to that moment, we need to stay inside the room for another second. Because Jason leaving doesn't end the meeting. It detonates it. The conference room door closes behind him. The faint sound of his footsteps fades down the hall. What remains is silence. Not calm, thoughtful silence. No, this is the kind of silence that comes after something breaks. Meghan sits perfectly still, hands folded in front of her binder, her face composed but drained of color. Her assistants don't look at her. The executives don't look at her. Nobody moves. Because nobody knows what she's about to do. Will she explode? Cry? Blame? Walk out? No one wants to be the first to speak. Finally, one of the executives, the older one, the one who's been trying to stay professional through this whole disaster, clears his throat. Well, thank you for your presentation. It might be the weakest sentence ever spoken in that building. Meghan doesn't even answer. She forces a tiny smile, but her jaw is clenched so tight that the muscles twitch beneath her skin. Her main assistant leans in as quietly as possible and whispers, "Do you want to leave now?" Meghan whispers back, "No, I want a moment." The assistant nods and sits back. The executives give polite excuses. "We appreciate your time. Thank you for coming in. We'll discuss internally." Everyone knows these lines translate to, "This is over." But they say them anyway. It's Hollywood etiquette. The polite burial. When the last executive leaves, Meghan stays seated. Composed. Still. But her eyes? They're not composed. They're furious. A silent, simmering fury. Tight, cold, controlled. The kind of anger that comes not from being attacked, but from being exposed. Her assistant tries to speak again. "We can reschedule with another team. We can rewrite the pitch. We can adjust the structure." Meghan raises a hand. "No," she says. "We don't rewrite for someone who refuses to see vision." That sentence hangs in the air. Vision. Her favorite word. But vision without story is vapor. And deep down, she knows it. She doesn't want to admit it yet, but she feels it. The sting, the humiliation, the unexpectedness of being told no by someone who didn't even hesitate. She stands, straightens her blazer, smooths her hair, and says, "Let's go." The assistants gather everything quickly, stuffing papers into bags, unplugging chargers, closing binders. But here's the twist. The moment Meghan walks out of that room, the meeting doesn't end. It begins. Just not the meeting she wanted. Down the hall, Jason is walking fast. Not storming. Not fuming. Just walking with the irritated stride of someone who feels their time was wasted. He's not angry. He's annoyed. And there's a difference. He pulls aside one of the executives who attended the meeting. They talk in low voices. The executive asks, "So that's a no?" Jason gives a small laugh, one without humor. "That's not just a no. That's a never." The executive winces. Jason continues. "She's pitching an image, not a narrative. I can't work with that." Then he says the line that becomes the quote, the line that becomes the spark, the line that spreads across the studio in less than an hour. A line he doesn't realize someone is hearing from around the corner. He says, "Hollywood has enough vanity projects. We don't need another one built around a royal victim fantasy." There it is. Clean, quiet, precise, and absolutely nuclear. Because the person around the corner? A junior coordinator. The kind who texts. The kind who chats. The kind who forwards things without thinking. The kind who doesn't understand the power of a quote until it's already too late. He freezes. Listens. Eyes widen. Then he slips away. Heart pounding. Brain racing with the weight of what he just heard. Within 2 minutes, the quote is in a group chat. Within 10 minutes, it's in 3 more. Within 30 minutes, it's in the Slack thread the executives always pretend they don't read. Within an hour, it's on the floor where the Amazon Originals team works. Within 2 hours, it's reached someone who used to work with Meghan's PR consultant. It's not posted online. It's not leaked to the press. It's not on Twitter or Reddit. Not yet. This is internal, private, contained. But it spreads fast. Because Hollywood gossip doesn't travel by mouth. It travels by heartbeat. And this is the kind of quote that has its own pulse. Meanwhile, Meghan is still walking through the lobby toward the exit, head high, posture perfect. People see her. People smile politely. But their eyes? Their eyes flicker with curiosity. Because something in her expression isn't right. She's not glowing. She's not energized. She's not victorious. She looks like someone who's trying to hold something together with invisible thread. Her assistant steps closer. "Are you okay?" she whispers. Meghan keeps walking. I'm fine. But he was. I don't care what he was. Her tone is clipped, shorter than usual, sharper than she intends. She pushes through the exit doors without slowing down. The sun hits her face. The photographers outside, just a few, far fewer than she hoped, snap pictures automatically. She puts on her best half-smile. But her eyes? Still angry. Still burning. The assistants load the SUV. Meghan gets inside. And as soon as the door closes, her entire expression drops. No cameras. No executives. No audience. Just her. Her real face. And it's not the face she rehearses. It's the face of someone stunned that the world didn't bend the way she expected. She whispers, "He humiliated me." Silence. Then, "He thinks he can talk to me like that?" Her assistant tries to answer gently. "Maybe he was just being. Don't defend him." Another silence. Then Meghan says something quietly. Something she doesn't want anyone to hear. But she says it anyway. "I'm not going to let one man derail my comeback." But here's the secret she doesn't know. It's not one man. It's everyone who heard the quote. Everyone who repeats it. Everyone who interprets it as a warning. Because to Amazon MGM, Jason's opinion is not just feedback. It's signal, influence, pulse, and the signal spreads. Quickly, quietly, dangerously, especially when someone in that building, decides to put Jason's quote into writing. Not maliciously, not intentionally, but as part of an internal summary. A summary that will circulate far beyond its intended audience. A summary that will reach the one place Meghan absolutely did not want it to reach. The executive board's private review channel, where decisions about future partnerships are made, and where reputations, even fictionalized, dramatized reputations like the one in this story, are quietly, silently shaped. But what exactly was in that memo? What did it say? Who wrote it? And how did it explode into the most damaging internal document Meghan never saw? If the meeting itself was the earthquake, the memo was the aftershock that toppled the building. Because Hollywood doesn't run on official announcements. Hollywood runs on internal documents. The emails, the summaries, the bullet point breakdowns that circulate silently behind the scenes. Outsiders think deals are made in glamorous rooms. Insiders know they're made in memos. And this memo? Oh, this one becomes the kind of quiet internal document that travels farther, spreads faster, and causes more damage than any headline ever could. Let's rewind to the moment it was born. Inside the studio, 30 minutes after Meghan walks out, the executives from the meeting gather in a small internal office. It's a standard post-pitch debrief. Routine. Expected. Normal. But the tone? Not normal. The older executive drops into a chair and rubs his face with both hands. That was... He starts, then doesn't finish. The younger executive finishes for him. Difficult. He nods. Unprepared, he adds. Unfocused. Unstructured. Another exec from the floor enters, having heard rumors already swirling. Is it true? She asks. Did Jason really say the project was a vanity piece? The older exec sighs. He said more than that. They all exchange a look. Not malicious. Not gleeful. Just troubled. Because nobody likes a messy pitch. Nobody likes a destabilizing meeting. Nobody likes fallout. Especially fallout involving a high-profile figure who generates news every time she breathes. We need documentation, the younger exec says. For the pipeline report. Of course they do. It's protocol. Every pitch, big or small, brilliant or disastrous, gets a summary. And that summary becomes part of the internal archive. So the younger exec opens her laptop, cracks her knuckles, and starts typing. At first, it's standard language. Meeting. Meghan Markle project presentation. Date, ______. Attendees, ______. Summary of discussion, _______. But the moment she gets to the concerns section, that's where everything changes. Because the concerns? Oh, they aren't small. She types. Lack of clear narrative structure. Absence of concrete story arc. Project relies heavily on personal branding rather than plot. Then she hesitates. Her fingers hover over the keyboard. She knows what she heard Jason say. She remembers the exact tone. The exact wording. But should she include it? The older exec sees her pause. Put it in, he says quietly. We need the record to reflect what was actually said. She nods and types the line. The line that will later echo through every department. The line that becomes part of Meghan's new Hollywood reputation. Director Jason Orley expressed that the pitch resembled a vanity project and lacked the narrative depth required for development. There it is. In writing. Black and white. Permanent. She continues typing, emboldened now. Concerns raised regarding marketability and risk level. Potential for controversy outweighs potential for quality content. Internal recommendation. Do not proceed. She rereads it. The older exec nods. Send it, he says. And with one click. One small, casual click. The memo blasts off to the studio's internal distribution list. Not far. Not everywhere. Just enough. Enough for the content development team. Enough for the originals division. Enough for the risk assessment group. Enough for the executive board's assistant. And that's all it takes. Because Hollywood is a domino system. You knock over one block. The rest fall on their own. The memo hits inboxes within seconds. People reading it don't see Meghan's face. They don't see her reaction. They don't see the pitch. All they see are the words. Vanity project. High risk. Lacks structure. Do not proceed. 3 floors above, a staffer opens the memo with a sip of iced coffee. Her eyebrows rise. She reads it again. Wow, she whispers. A developer in the adjacent cubicle calls out. What happened? She turns her monitor slightly, so he can see. He whistles. No way. That rough. She nods. That rough. Within 10 minutes, the memo appears in a team Slack. Not maliciously, just efficiency. Someone writes, FYI, feedback from earlier meeting. Someone else replies, oof. That's going to get around. Someone else adds, risk team won't like this. And then one more message pops up. Does she know yet? Silence. Because no. Meghan doesn't know. Not yet. She's still in the car. Still processing what just happened. Still trying to understand how a meeting she was sure she would dominate devolved into an artistic autopsy. Meanwhile, the memo continues its route. It hits the division VP's inbox. He reads it, leans back in his chair, and mutters. Not a chance. His assistant asks, should we add her to the maybe list? He shakes his head. No. That's a hard no. 3 floors down, in the content strategy office, someone prints the memo. Actually prints it. A physical copy. She hands it to her colleague. He reads it. Whistles. Says, if Orley isn't on board, nobody else will be. Another says, this could get messy. Another replies, let's just hope it doesn't leak. Spoiler, it won't leak publicly today. But it won't stay hidden either. Because memos aren't private. Not truly. They're sent to employees. Employees have opinions. Opinions turn into conversations. Conversations turn into whispers. And whispers, they travel. Especially when someone in the building has ties to someone outside the building. Someone in PR. Someone in talent management. Someone who hears things. Within an hour, a former Amazon assistant, now working at a different studio, gets a text. You hear about the Meghan meeting? She replies, no. What happened? The answer comes. Check your email. Because someone forwarded the memo. Illegally. Stupidly. Predictably. She opens it. Reads it twice. Screenshots it. Forwards it to a friend at another studio. Who forwards it to an agent. Who forwards it to a manager. Who forwards it to someone at a rival streamer. No press yet. No public scandal. No trending topics. This is still underground. Still internal. Still shadow-level Hollywood communication. But the damage? Already done. Because in this fictionalized Hollywood universe, reputation doesn't crumble with headlines. It crumbles with memos. Meanwhile, Meghan is still in the SUV. Still silent. Her assistant finally speaks. Do you want to stop somewhere before going home? No. Should we prepare a follow-up deck? Maybe restructure the pitch? Add more story beats? No. Should we update Archwell? Let them know the meeting didn't. I said no. Her tone is sharp. Not at her assistant. But at the situation. The humiliation is sinking in. And humiliation doesn't sink evenly. It sinks in layers. Layer 1. Shock. Layer 2. Anger. Layer 3. Rationalization. Layer 4. Narrative rebuilding. Right now, Meghan is somewhere between layers 2 and 3. He thinks he can dismiss me, she says softly. He thinks he can just say whatever he wants because he's a director? Her assistant hesitates. Meghan. He wasn't the only one in the room who looked concerned. Meghan's eyes flash. Are you saying they agreed with him? Her assistant freezes. No, she says quickly. I'm just saying the room felt tense. Tense because he made it tense. Meghan looks out the window. The city blurs past. She's already constructing the alternative version of events in her mind. He was threatened. He misunderstood. He was biased. He was intimidated. He didn't appreciate the innovation. He didn't understand her vision. But while she reconstructs her story, Hollywood reconstructs hers. And that's the story that matters. Because 1 hour and 50 minutes after the memo goes out, it reaches the desk of someone who never wanted Meghan in the pipeline to begin with. A senior strategist at the studio. He reads the memo. His eyes light up. Not with malice. With relief. He scrolls to the key sentence. Vanity project. He circles it. Then writes in his notes. Recommend distancing. 2 more strategists read the memo later that afternoon. Their reaction? Immediate alignment. Yep. Not worth the noise. No upside. High risk, low reward. Then a producer reads it. She sighs. We're not touching this. Then a development assistant forwards it to her old roommate, who works in talent relations. That roommate replies, Yikes. She's going to have a problem. And then the worst case scenario happens.